Hi, I'm Bruce Collette. I'm senior scientist at the Systematics Laboratory of the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is part of NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency, one of the affiliated agencies that has some staff located here. I arrived here in the fall of 1960, and my research is concentrated on the systematics and evolution of marine epipelagic, that is, up near the surface fishes, particularly the 51 species of commercially important mackerels and tunas. Back then, the names and identities of all the commercial species of tunas were totally confused, so I've spent much of the last half century straightening these out, concluding that there's one worldwide species of yellowfin, there are 7 species of large tunas in the genus Thunus, which includes most of the ones you eat as canned tuna, yellowfin, big eye, albacore, and the related skipjack, and also the 3 species of bluefins, which are highly prized as sashimi. 5 years ago, the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, asked me to chair a new tuna and billfish specialist group to assess the threat status to the 61 species of mackerels, tunas, and billfishes. The IUCN maintains the red list of threatened species, which contains names, summaries of biology, summaries of the threat status to a wide variety of species, both plants and animals. The IUCN has developed a system that allows the integration of lots of data into categories such that we can classify them in one of the 8 categories you see on this slide. We hope that most of the species that we assess fall in green, least concern, and we worry about the ones that are in the 3 threatened categories: vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. When the red list was started, it contained mostly terrestrial and freshwater organisms and very few marine species. In order to redress this imbalance, the Global Marine Species Assessment Program was created under the leadership of my colleague Kent Carpenter at Old Dominion University. The idea was to assess 20,000 species of marine organisms and get them on the red list, and to do this through a series of expert workshops. Some of these workshops are focused geographically, like these on the Mediterranean, the Eastern Tropical Pacific, and the Eastern Central Atlantic, shown here. Others are focused on a particular group of plants and animals, like the 4 workshops we held in Peru, Taiwan, Brazil, and the United States to assess all the species of tunas and mackerels and billfishes that you see in the upper left. Now let's look at a little bit of data. On the left, we see seagrasses, mangroves, and corals, all of which have a high percentage of species in threatened categories. On the right, not surprisingly, marine mammals and sea turtles also have very large numbers of threatened species due to past over-harvesting. Moving back to the left, we have sharks and rays, billfishes, and tunas, all of which have relatively high numbers in the threatened category, again due to fisheries. A little more to the right, we see angelfishes, butterfly fishes, parrotfishes, and wrasses, species most of which live in coral reefs, which themselves are threatened, but these have very low or relatively low numbers of species in threatened categories because there are no commercial fisheries for these. However, in the middle there are groupers which also live in coral reef habitats, but contain many species which are highly important commercially, so they have high numbers of threatened species. So where are we at? We've gotten about 10,000 of the 20,000 species assessed. We found that 25% of corals, mangroves, and seagrasses are at elevated risk. 15% of all the marine species assessed so far are in threatened categories, and this is about the same percentage as for terrestrial organisms. However, in the marine realm, exploitation is by far the most important threat, whereas in the terrestrial realm, habitat is more important. And finally, the first big bluefin brought into the Tokyo markets, the price has escalated from $700,000 to $1.2 million to this year $1.76 million for one fish. This means that the last bluefin is probably worth more than the boat that caught it. A real conservation problem. Thank you.
What's that phrase there in Japanese?
You should think carefully before you eat bluefin tuna.